Saskatchewan is fighting the federal carbon tax all the way to the Supreme Court, and maybe it will keep fighting the federal government during the provincial election, which could start any day now. Will it continue? And what does that mean for Saskatchewan's official opposition? For more on that, we're joined by CBC Saskatchewan political reporter Adam Hunter. Adam, it seems like we've heard more from the Premier about federal issues than provincial ones this week.
Yeah, there's a real blurring of the lines here, Sam. The Premier came out last week and gave the Prime Minister a letter, a list of priorities about what he thought should be included in the speech from the throne. When the speech from the throne came out, Scott Moe very quickly had a press conference where he blasted the speech, saying there weren't enough mentions of Saskatchewan, weren't enough mentions of the oil and gas industry, the agriculture industry, some of the economic drivers here in the province and in Western Canada. He urged the other MPs around the country, regardless of party, not to support the speech from the throne, which of course would trigger an election. And Scott Moe also associating Ryan Miley with the federal NDP, who will need to prop up the Liberal government on that confidence vote in order to keep the Liberal government in a minority position in power. So we have been hearing more and more, as we have over the last 2 years, really, since Scott Moe was named leader, of a focus on the Liberal government, a focus on Justin Trudeau, sometimes more so than his provincial opponent in the upcoming election, which is the NDP and Ryan Miley.
We're looking at a writ drop in the next couple of days, and then it'll be full-out campaigning for all the parties. What storylines are you going to have your eye on right out of the gate?
I think the one that we're talking about today is Sandra Morin running in Wall Shakers as an independent. There's some strife and stress there between Morin and the NDP. She really came out firing against both Scott Moe and Ryan Miley today, and it's very rare for us to see an independent get elected recently. We have almost a two-party system here in Saskatchewan. Some other issues I'll be watching for are, what the parties really focus on in the first early days, where they go, what constituencies they focus on, where they think maybe they're at risk or they want to gain seats. So obviously the NDP has a lot more work to do in that point of view from the Saskatchewan Party. In 2016, Sam, the Saskatchewan Party won more than 30 seats with 60% of the vote, some even up to 80% of the vote. So if you take that into account, it's going to be very hard for the NDP to flip some of those safe Sask Party seats. The Sask Party looking at a giant advantage when they do drop the writ. But there are some seats up for grabs in Regina and Saskatoon, where some very close races from 4 years ago, some that could flip to the Sask Party from the NDP or vice versa. And we'll have to see how and if any third parties play a role in this. 4 years ago, the Liberals fielded 61 candidates across the province. It doesn't look like they're going to get there. Their leader stepped down a couple of weeks ago. We haven't heard much from the other parties. We know the Progressive Conservative Party is running some candidates, the Green Party, but nothing really that would get it up to that 61 number. We still have a few weeks left, obviously, but we'll have to wait and see how that race breaks down, whether there are any spoilers, let's say. But the one that's on top of everyone's mind, I think, at this point is that Wall Shakers race between Sandra Morin and the newcomer Derek Myers for the Saskatchewan Party. The NDP just naming a candidate last night, Kelly Hardy. So that's one we'll have our eye on, Sam.
Adam, I'm wondering what you're hearing from people in terms of how they're going to engage voters, because we're in a pandemic and it's not necessarily top of mind.
Yeah, I think this is something the parties, we talked to them last week about just the new ways they're trying to engage with voters. Obviously, they've been active on social media, trying to get their message out through the pandemic when they couldn't do door knocking. Now they're allowed to door knock. There are some restrictions on that. You'll see candidates and volunteers now more and more coming door to door. But we're not going to see the big campaign rallies like we're used to, big events where there's maybe hundreds of people in a room or in a hall. More likely to see outdoor events where people can space out in the fresh air, and we'll wonder to see how that affects a voter turnout, Sam. When we look at the New Brunswick election that just happened, the pandemic is the cases there aren't as high as they are in Saskatchewan. There are already about 3 active cases, only 200 total in that province. Very different from Saskatchewan. So they didn't really have that affect voter turnout. In Saskatchewan, it could be a little bit different. Of course, I mentioned the Saskatchewan Party with a big lead going into the election. That may turn some people away, but we'll have to wait and see how the parties get out to get the vote out on the doorstep. And even on election day, trying to drive people to the polls, that's going to look a lot different, I think, too, Sam.
Thanks so much for this, Adam.
You're welcome.